So if you're not aware, DC Comics a couple weeks ago announced that they were pulling from Diamond and are going to start using two other distributors to get their comics out. In addition to that, they're going to be releasing their comics on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. Now, Wednesday has been New Comic Book Day for decades now. I don't remember how far back this goes. I don't think it goes back like to the beginning of the comic industry, but it goes back a while. DC's reasoning for doing this is to survive and adapt in a changing market that right now is not growing. The comic book market hasn't grown in many years. It's not always, I won't say it's on a steady decline. It does level out a lot, but it's basically stagnant. And where there is no growth, there is eventual decline. So, the comic market, in a way, you can say, has seen its days numbered unless it makes some sort of change. The pandemic has been a force of necessity. DC was unwilling to just simply take a loss that they didn't feel that they had to take during this time, and so they moved forward when Diamond distributors decided not to distribute any comics for a while. So more than likely, you're already familiar with that. Like I said, I've done some videos on that. I know lots of other people have as well. But what I want to talk about today is this meltdown the entire industry seems to be happening over DC's decision. Let's take a look at what's going on here. So when the announcement first came out, Midtown Comics, which is one of the largest retail comic book stores in the world, or chain, or however you classify them, as well as having a huge mail order business, they announced a DC Sucks, and I do quote, DC Sucks 50% off sale, is basically a way to sort of give DC Comics the bird for what they were doing. Then not long later, the chief editor of Image Comics came out and called their decision sociopathic, and basically just railed against them for what they were doing and saying they were trying to hurt the industry, or basically they didn't care about the industry. And now you've got Marvel Comics has announced they're going to do this release of variant covers that specifically says on the cover, available Wednesday. They are doing this as a sort of protest against DC trying to change New Comic Book Day and trying to show solidarity with the way things were. And that's what this whole thing is. You got all these unhappy retailers, you got these unhappy comic book publishers, and they're all basically trying to show solidarity for the way of doing things the last 25 plus years. And that's what they want. They're basically standing up against what DC has done because that forces a change in the market. And their inherent belief is that to make this change is bad for everyone. Now, at first, this is really just kind of blowing my mind. A basic understanding of economic principles makes it obvious that Diamond's monopoly and their use of that monopoly is one of the, if not the biggest problem in the comic book industry today. Publishers, retailers, creators should have a base understanding of this. And in a way, even Diamond themselves should realize what kind of a problem they are. Now, they stand the most to gain, but they also stand the most to lose by having the most to gain. And the fact that they have not tried to, well, obviously in their instance, they don't want to give up monopoly control, but the fact that they haven't tried to be proactive in making the comic book market better, is just mind-blowing. And again, this really goes beyond just the Diamond monopoly. I've talked about this before. We need to get comic books in places besides the direct market. It needs to be in other types of stores. We need to have it easier access. We need to look at ways, basically in the short is we need to look at ways to innovate the industry, and that's what DC is doing. And it occurred to me finally this weekend, what is going on? Why is the market responding the way they are? And it comes down to one thing: maturity. The comic book industry is largely run by people who don't know how to show maturity. And I think that can actually point to pretty much every problem that we've been having in recent years. And let's look at the decreased quality of comic books in recent years. Anytime that criticism is pointed at the industry gets very defensive. They try to make it personal. They're more likely to throw their critics and their fans under the bus than anything, instead of actually looking at like, hey, wait a minute, maybe our sales really aren't that great, so we should listen to this criticism. Then there's just the unwillingness to embrace the change that are necessary to improve the market, as well as this naive assumption that things were going to get better because of reasons. I think it was said best in the Godfather movies.
It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business.
See, that's a big deal there. Personal and business, they are separate things. What DC's doing is not personal, it's just business. And maybe it will prove to be the wrong decision. But people who are mature can make the distinction between someone trying to do what they feel is right for the business and trying to make something just personal. It really takes maturity to make that distinction. And right now, the comic book industry is not demonstrating that it has that level of maturity. If the industry doesn't survive, that's going to be a large reason why. Immaturity is a great liability against the ability to grow in business. To grow and be successful in business, you need to be willing to admit when you're wrong, not as a personal issue, but just simply as a matter of fact. Some things aren't working, so change is necessary. One must be willing to embrace change. One must be willing to embrace risk. One must be willing to treat their vendors, partners, their competitors, and most importantly, their customers with respect. That respect doesn't even have to be heartfelt. It could just be lip service. But it's enough to separate one's personal opinion away from what is effective in a commercial market, and being openly disrespectful is never going to grow business. There's nothing wrong with Image, Midtown, Marvel, or anyone else coming out and being critical of DC's decision. But if they do, they need to express specific reasons why this isn't going to work, what specific concerns they have, why they think change, or at least this particular kind of change, is bad for the business, other than just, again, reasons, which seems to be all we're getting. And they need to be able to do so in simply a matter-of-fact way. It doesn't have to be personal. Sadly, the way that the industry is right now is just losing its mind tells me this is not an industry that's meant to survive. And maybe the thing to do is just to let the parts of it that want to fail just fail, so that those who want to succeed can succeed, and from that, a new industry can grow. Anyway, that's it for this video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Again, you can always just insult me and tell me how stupid I am and how wrong I am. After all, isn't that what comments are for? All right, everyone, have a great day. Later.